Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by Seth Gillihan, where he says, paradoxically, the more willing to be uncomfortable, the more ease we'll find. How do you relate to that quote, especially in business and in life?
Good to be back with you, my friend. Good to be back. This is true on multiple levels. When we were kind of thinking of the right topic, this immediately stood out as like, oh, yeah, that's true. I can think of like 6 ways that that's true. One way, just right off the rip, that this is true psychologically is that a lot of our deepest pain over experience, a lot of the turmoil that we experience or the suffering that we experience is actually normally we see it as caused by this thing going on out in the world, but yet the proximate cause, when we really pay close attention a lot of the times day to day, especially to the prolonged pain and psychological pain that we feel towards something, almost always we can find that there's actually stimulus over here, and then there's this looping cycle of resistance to what is going on and what we anticipate to happen and what has happened in the past and what is here now and what we're worried about and what we want to prevent to happen. And this resistance itself is the actual immediate cause of the sense of contraction and the thing that prevents us from ever having access to ease when we are in these cycles. And many times the way through our most challenging psychological stimuli in our life, whether it's interpersonal or whether it's even physical, even if we're worried about something about our health. Although, of course, there's limits to where physical pain will cause us some degree of discomfort and suffering. That's for sure. But there's this second arrow of our thoughts about things, our resistance about things. This is what a willingness to be uncomfortable can remove. In fact, and a lot of times when we let go of resisting what's going on in the world, resisting how we feel, resisting what we're thinking, resisting what somebody else is doing, resisting what might happen in the future. When we let go of this struggle feeling, this internal struggle posture, this is what enables the clenched fist of our mind to unclench a bit. This is what can enable ease to shine through a little bit and then a little bit more. And then we can see that it's actually available already, even in the midst of this storm. We first must kind of soften a bit in order to feel this. We first must be willing to feel uncomfortable for us to let go of this resistance cycle that is actually the worst proximate cause vortex trap in our mind. That's actually the thing that we have more agency over than we normally realize. How do you think about this? Let's start on the psychological level. How does a willingness to feel uncomfortable translate to ease? It is paradoxical. It's not culturally conditioned. How is it true in your experience?
Well, in my experience, it's true on a multi-level layered cake level, I think. And you pointed out very beautifully that it's about letting go. Once you have something, letting it go, it's hard. If you give a bone to a dog and then you take it away, the dog is not happy at all. You might even be angry, and you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
The same happens to us, to ourselves. There's a German saying, the innerer Schweinehund, the inner swine dog. It's like a thing you need to overcome in order to get something done, in order to reach the next level or whatever. And the same applies to letting go of our expectations, letting go of our fears, letting go of our identities sometimes, and exposing ourselves. And this notion of letting go is the main thing, in my opinion, my experience, towards becoming uncomfortable, but then making ease happen through going through this uncomfortable phase. For example, if we go into the cold water,
Yes.
if we have cold water exposure, we feel uneasy. It is very uncomfortable because it's not within our comfort zone. But after that, we enhanced our spectrum of how warm it is actually when we go outside the cold water again, how warm it actually has been before without us recognizing how warm it was. We adapt our bodily response to the increased level of uncomfort so that we now have a bigger spectrum of available moments where we can now feel ease, which we haven't before because we didn't have the spectrum available of how uncomfortable it can get. So we have a different reference framing after that.
Mm, mm,
So even if it's painful, it is first of all painful internally. It is happening within our mind. Usually, there is also possibilities to like circumvent pain through hypnosis, for example. There's some doctors experimenting with it. So this is another hint to pain is internally. There's a stimulus, there's an internal resistance, and there's this contraction you talked about. But in order to soften this contraction, we need to let go. And this letting go can be uncomfortable. And through this uncomfort, we unlock the next level of ease in the game of life, in my opinion. Peyton, is the reverse also true? Like, is there something in terms of, okay, we think about it, it is uncomfortable, but actually holding on to it is uncomfortable in the long term, much more than it would be letting go immediately.
Yes, yes, and this is something I need to relearn all of the time. And just to say one example of this that's really practical, and I forget this, come back to it over and over, is just with almost any negative emotion. Let's say it's fear. Let's say it's anxiety. Let's say it's anger. Let's say it's sadness, whatever it may be. We're humans. We are literally primates, all of us. Like we experience this range of human emotions, and there's some culture around always hiding this, never feeling this. There's a hesitancy, maybe in men more than anyone, among of showing or feeling or admitting that we feel these emotions. But we're all humans out here. Like everybody you meet, everybody you see on the street feels the same emotions at times. We all go through these ups and downs in this existence caused by various stimuli or whatever. It will happen. You will feel sadness. You will feel anger. You will feel fear. You will feel all of these things in life. And the letting go element of it, my experience is if I'm struggling against and unwilling to feel this way, then it will cause my whole life to more and more orient around this negative emotion. Paradoxically, it's you give it this incredible power. It's as if there's this paper tiger on a wall, and the more you cower from it, the more you run away from this paper tiger, the bigger it gets in your mind, the scarier it gets. Every time you run away from feeling this way, you reinforce this idea in your mind, this implicit idea that I can't feel this way, that I must avoid this, that I cannot handle this thing. And actually leaning in and running right through that paper tiger, which is, I'll talk about in a second. That's what can make us feel that, oh, yeah, I can feel sadness and I have capacity for it. I can feel fear and I can allow that to be here and I'm fine and I still live and the clouds can come and the storm can rain and the sky can survive and the sky is actually ultimately untouched. And how does that work? What does that mean? Is it to just get totally caught up in our narratives about what we're afraid of? Probably not. That's probably actually not the level on which it helps. Just kind of getting super preoccupied in our mind about all our stories around it, all our identities around it, all our catastrophization and extrapolation over the future. That's not the productive way to actually deal with this. We can accept that. We can accept the thoughts arising, and we should. In fact, that's another level on which this sort of accepting and surrendering and letting go must happen, actually, is allowing that, okay, I can't control what thoughts originally arise, but I can control if I'm going to get on this train for the next 6 hours and think repetitive thoughts about this thing until I'm catastrophizing it in my mind out of proportion. But the level on which we should really accept, in my experience, and let go and let be is the body. Emotions are primarily an embodied experience. There's this cycle of the body, the thoughts, the body, the thoughts. They can kind of reinforce each other. We feel this way in our body, and then we confabulate a story to elaborate upon the energies that we feel that are primary to language. And then this thought cycle that goes on in our mind then creates actually and is an extreme causal source of the prolonged nature of many emotions and especially many negative emotions. And if we realize that, oh, I actually have the capacity for my anger in my body to set aside the story, but just let the energy just burn as hot as it wants to. For the next 2 minutes, I'm just going to feel rage, like an explosion in my whole system. I'm going to feel it in my chest, my shoulders, my arms, like my whole system is just going to let it flow. Or sadness, and I just let the whole feeling of this sunkenness in my stomach feel like a bottomless pit of despair that's prior to words for just now, for just this minute. Or I feel this fear, and I can allow the feeling of fear or anxiety to just be there through my system, probably in the top of my stomach. And I can just fully let that volume turn to 1,000 on the physical, embodied, energetic level. This can do a few things for us. One, we can realize that I don't have to run away from that. I don't have to be scared of feeling fear and live my whole life around trying to shut away and shut out this potential feeling. Is actually I have the capacity. I'm a human. Therefore, I have the capacity to feel this whole range of things. Therefore, there is a sky and the stormiest clouds can pass through. Even hail can pass through, and the sky will actually be fine. And so I don't have to live my whole life cowering from feeling these certain feelings. I can allow them to be here. I can have this capability. And once we feel that, then we can actually go have this hard conversation with somebody because we know that whatever happens from it, we can feel that too. We can go actually take this risk because we know that if we feel these emotions around it, we can feel that too. We can actually build this, not this fake confidence, but actually just this track record that we observe that, oh, yeah, I've felt the strongest fear. I've felt fear on volume 100. I've felt anger on volume 100. I've felt all of these negative emotions on volume 100. I have the capacity in my body to allow all of these storms to flare up and to come when they need to come. And what we see is when we allow, when we're not caught up in this resistance of what we're unwilling to feel, then our life can actually flow smoother. We can unstuck ourselves in all of these ways and all of these different elements and realms of our life where we're kind of without even consciously realizing it. We've structured our whole ways of being toward trying to avoid ever feeling a certain way. Once we realize we have the capacity, we can feel that way as much as we need to feel that way. And we know that because we felt it on 120 times in our own experience. We paid attention and we're fine. And when we feel it, it actually is able to pass through. When we get it, when we take it up into the brain, into the thinker, when we're not willing to feel it in the body, that's when we get ourselves stuck in these cycles, in my experience. How do you think
Mhm.
about this way that in fact the way to get through a lot of our most challenging psychological things is to allow them to fully flare up? And I'll share a quick quote from the Tao Te Ching about this is and I'm gonna butcher the quote like I always do, but when the wind comes, there is only wind. When the rain comes, there is only rain. When the clouds pass, the sun shines through. How can this be a practical way of being in our lives?
Beautiful. How I think about it as practical in our lives is recognizing that we ourselves are not fixed in space time. We are not fixed in our identity. We are not fixed in our lives. Everything is changing constantly around us, in ourselves. The world is dynamic, a very dynamic place. So this is the dichotomy. There's like, if we think we want to keep a structure, if we want to keep the control over how
Mm,
the elements mesh
mm,
up with each other and how they persist over time and over space and over the iterations, then we do have futile hopes, in my opinion. So if we accept that we are dynamic, that our identity is that dynamic, that we are adaptable, then we can work with all the dynamics. It is the same dichotomy, which I did not get a full grasp on it yet. But you, as an entrepreneur, you have a system, you have a business, you own a structure, and you yourself know how dynamic of a thing that is. It can fall apart the next moment, but it can as well just remain very well. And if you only rely on things being static, you will lose out a lot
mm.
of possibilities and potential and a lot of growth. You will just let go by if you have just this fixed mindset. But you thrive in this dynamic world of, okay, now we need to put these resources from this underutilized place onto this place so that there's a higher yield and higher productivity of it. And you constantly move around things. You constantly scheme out new strategies to uncover hidden value, to uncover hidden potential. And then you try to ground this potential. And in this dynamic, you thrive actually. You create more value, more than it has been before. You create new systems and ideas. You teach people new skills. And with all of that, it is the deep acceptance of the dynamic nature of the world. And that there is also stuff to be lost, but also stuff to be gained. But through your work, you try to gain more than you lose. So it is not being fixated on one identity. It is thriving in the flow of things. And the best tool for this is being able to trust,
Yes.
to give space for the energies which come. They ebb and flow in an enormous amount of intensity sometimes. But best, as you said, is practically, as you said, is give them space. Let them flow through. Let them dissipate and don't resist. Because if you resist, it will persist. It will increase its strength and its grip it has on you. But if you give it space, you can increase the space and let it dissipate, and even use the energy maybe to be inspired, and even to reroute the energy to create change, to adapt to new certain kinds of circumstances which dynamically showed up. So soften the grip on a fixed structure. Embrace your adaptability and your agility, and then you'll be more at ease with whatever you have, whatever you dance with, because the world is a dynamic place. Baden, how did you relate to the thoughts, and then what kind of resonated with you in
Mm,
terms of you being an entrepreneur?
well, you point out the foundation of all of this is that once again, the absolute fundamental beneath everything we're talking about here is trust, is letting go of our control, is releasing our grip. We cannot flow if we are rigid. We must soften what is rigid within us to be able to move with this. And that requires not being in control over what we feel and what we don't feel and how every little thing goes. We must ride the wave, and it requires trust. It requires faith. Without that, we're just going to struggle against everything and we will cut off ease. I also think that this applies even on a very physical level. Our willingness to feel physical discomfort has a lot to do with the ease we feel. I would say in my own life, some examples of this is I feel discomfort stretching and doing yoga. I've always kind of not enjoyed this, but the more that I kind of lean into that discomfort, the more ease I feel as my baseline state, very literally in my body. Same with resistance training, working out and going super hard working out 100% exertion, feeling like I'm like 2% away from passing out. This is very uncomfortable, but it actually enables my baseline vitality to be much stronger day to day. And I feel a greater ease in my body because of this, ironically. Same with breath work. It is very uncomfortable to over hyperventilate our system and then to hold our breath until the CO2 levels in our blood is really heightened and it changes your consciousness, it shifts your state, and on some level you must endure what at first, and you get used to it, you learn to love it. But in all of these things, you learn to love stretching, you learn to love resistance training, you learn to love breath work. But at first the experience is, this is really uncomfortable, I don't like how this feels, this kind
Mhm.
of hurts, or this kind of feels this, or I can't breathe, or whatever.
Yeah.
And by kind of learning to lean into that discomfort, we find much more ease in our mind and our state. And with breath work, it can actually learn to connect to you with our arguably our greatest resource. Our breath is always with us. Our breath is always here for us. Our breath is always here as a support, as a tool, as something to regulate our nervous system. And it's a great power. It's behind our voice. It's behind our expression in so many ways. It's behind our vitality, our energy. Our breath is incredible. But we must actually learn this embracing of discomfort to, at least in this way, deepen our capacity and relationship with it. Another last thing I'll share is I'm always amazed that I go to all of these incredible rural nature spots where there's very few hikers in general, but there's nobody that goes off the trail and actually jumps across the stream and climbs down this hill and is grabbing trees to climb up and is slipping and falling on rocks and logs and is doing these things and is going around the thorns and ducking underneath these plants and seeing how we can get up this rock face and this type of stuff. Hiking off trail is it is uncomfortable because we're so conditioned to this artificial environment of rectangles and flat surfaces and sharp angles. But this is where our bodies find their natural rhythm. This is where our whole kinesthetic intelligence and our vision and our hearing can all find a unity of flow. There is this incredible ease of being an embodied animal that we can find going off trail in the forest that is so incredible, but it's kind of uncomfortable at first for us until we get used to it. This too is a source of great ease and balance when we need it most. And so the final thing I'll leave us with is this: surrender to the inevitable. The a quick practical tidbit with a lot of this, with feeling emotions and getting unstuck in our thoughts, is journaling for me is really helpful to get to express all my most resistant thoughts and then come back to an acceptance of what I've of even the resistance that I've expressed, and the letting go of identity that you point out is just so essential. If we're holding on to an identity, we are therefore automatically going to be in a state of control and not of complete trust. We must loosen our grip and hold our identity, ourself, our feelings, our moods, our energies, everything. We must allow it to rest with an open palm. If we close a fist around it, we are going to get throttled by the universe, and these things will be throwing us around, and we will not feel ease. This is, at least I can speak of my own experience, having run this experiment many times in both ways. What final thoughts
Yes.
do you have? Anything about the physicality, the body, what ease means, or final thoughts about the value of ease?
Value of ease is how easily your life comes to you, like how easily you feel living your life is. If you constantly have to fight against windmills, then you burn out. You'll be stressed out. It's not good for your system to be in a constant state like this. Yeah, sometimes having this biological stressors, like you mentioned, extreme training, some cold exposure, even hunger and fasting is a part of this. Breath work and as well stretching, yoga, whatever. The physical parts are as well as important as the mental parts, like meditation or negative visualization. It is uncomfortable at first, but the more you get to it, and it's a matter of remembering it, because we naturally tend to not remember to do these practices. We have to have like meta habits. We have to have habits that encapsulate it so that it's easier for us to conduct. But as long as we do it, sometimes we collect evidences that the spectrum of possible feelings we can have at ease regarding the new possibilities of interpreting what is comfortable to us after we did the uncomfortable stuff is really giving us valuable um to interpret our life as being more at ease. Even if nothing changed of it, you will have an easier life if you sometimes be uncomfortable. So to all our dear listeners, it's an encouragement to think about what to do. What do you feel uncomfortable doing, but thought about maybe you should have done it, or maybe you want to do it next time? An encouragement to just lean into this discomfort and see how easy your life becomes after the experience.
If you want to be straight, let yourself become crooked. If you want to be full, let yourself become empty. If you want to be whole, let yourself become partial. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. This is another Tao Te Ching quote that I love. And my intention for this week is to trust in ease, to allow ease to be here. I think sometimes I even feel a glimpse of ease when I'm walking through the forest or doing some mundane activity in my home. And a part of my mind comes back to thinking about the future, planning about the future, thinking about how I'm going to solve some problem or what I'm going to need to do in the future. And this baseline default mode network overfiring and no break in the clouds this can be out of balance. And I think that the foundation of it, it's not that ease is hard to manufacture. It's that you must trust in this. You must accept the gift that is given in the now. And so this is my intention, is that when the opportunity comes, when it is the time to feel just peace, just stillness, even in motion, just quiet in the mind, to actually observe and take in the wholeness now, to feel what I'm feeling, to see what I'm seeing, to hear what I'm hearing, to allow it, to accept it, to embrace it, to feel gratitude, and to trust in it that this is what is meant for me, that this is restorative, that this is good, that this is fruitful, and allow it to flow from there. Give up control and to move fluidly. This is my intention for the week.
I'll double down on that, man.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate all you shared. Great conversation.
Likewise. See you soon. Thank you very
See you
much,
soon.
Peyton.